guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are making a crochet shorts today. I don't know why, for some reason I'm just in my shorts and pants area. I love it. I love it. I love it. I cannot even complain because I have enough skirts. I have enough crochet skirts. This pattern is super simple. The tutorial is quick, straight to the point. I'm gonna walk you guys through everything. The materials and the measurements needed will be down in the description box below. I'm gonna list everything down so you can go and check that out. I also want you guys to know you can play around with the stitches that I used. If you don't want to use those, you can play around with the materials as well, because this pattern is actually made for a top that I made last week. This top, I'm also going to link the pattern down below in the description in case you want to make yourself a set, so you don't have to use the same materials that I used, so you can play around with the materials and with the crochet work as well. It is super simple. If you do like it, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up and let me know down in the comments what you like about the pants as well. And I'll see you guys next week for a new tutorial or a new video. Whatever next week is going to be, I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye and have fun with the pattern. So to get started, you are going to make a slip knot. And by the way, I'm starting with my 5mm, and I'm going to make a chain, and this is going to be the length of the panel. For me, I chained a total of 70, so depending on how long you want your panel to be, you're just going to make a chain in that measurement. So because of this example, I did not chain 70, but for my own size and for the panel, for the shots that I made, mine was 70. But for this example, I'm just going to make a random chain just so I can get through this easily. For the next part, you are going to, which is row 1, you're going to chain an extra one, and this is going to be a turning chain, so that chain 1 is not an actual stitch. From there on, you are going to skip this very first stitch, and into the second stitch you are going to insert a slip stitch. And to work a slip stitch, you are going to go into the chain, you're going to grab the yarn, and when you have 2 loops, you're going to pull through again. That is how you work a slip stitch. I just want to say that you guys can use a single crochet for this method. You don't have to use a slip stitch, because I know slip stitch is time consuming, so you don't have to. You can use a single crochet or half double crochet stitch or double crochet stitch, in fact. So from there on, you're going to go into the next chain, you're going to grab the yarn, pull through, and you're going to pull through the last loop on the crochet hook. Again, go into the next chain, grab the yarn, and you're going to pull through. You can also mark your very first stitch so you know exactly what your first stitch is, and then you can also mark the last one when we're getting to the end. So this is what I'm going to repeat by inserting 1 slip stitch into every chain until you get to the very end. At the very end, you should still have the same amount of chains you did. So in my case, because I chained 70, I did have 70 at the very end of this row. So you're just going to repeat this until you get to the very end. So right there, I'm at the end. You want to make sure that you're repeating 1 slip stitch until you get to the very end, not to just reduce the amount of chain. You don't want to deduct the amount of chains because you want to keep the same amount. From there on, for row 2, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn, and we are going to work another slip stitch row, just the same way we did for row 1, but this time around we are going into the back loop. If you look at this very top of the stitches, you have a front and a back loop. A front is basically the stitch facing you, and a back loop is the stitch facing the opposite side. So again, a front stitch is the one facing you and the back stitch is the one facing the opposite side. So after chaining 1, this right here is my chain 1 space. I am going to go into this very first stitch into the back loop with a slip stitch, just the same thing we did for the first row. And into this next, I'm going to insert my crochet hook, grab the yarn, and I pull through. I also want to say, if you're using a slip stitch method, you want to make sure you're using a very loose tension, because with slip stitch, if your tension is tight, you are going to find it very difficult to get through the stitches. So keep that in mind. You're just carefully, with a very loose tension, going to go through the stitches into the back loop until you get to the very end. The loose tension is going to be loose, but at the end of the day, you're going to see that because it's a slip stitch, your stitches are going to automatically get tighter, and there is no like see-through pattern. You guys did see for my own panel, obviously it is not see-through, so don't be scared about how loose your tension is. You just want to make sure it's loose enough so you'll be able to go through your stitches easily. So at the end of row 2, you are going to chain 1 again, and you're going to turn, and just the same way you walked into the back loop of the previous row, you're going to do that for row 3 as well. So you're going to insert 1 slip stitch into the back loop, and if you're using a half double crochet or a single crochet, all you're going to do is the same thing. The only difference is you're using a half double crochet instead of a slip stitch. So you're going to carefully just go into each stitch, and also if you're using a half double crochet stitch or single crochet, you don't have to stick to a loose tension. You can just use a tight tension if you want to make sure that your shorts are not see-through. So you're just going to repeat this until you get to the very end, and you should have something like this. From there on, I'm going to chain 1 and just continue to repeat this exact same pattern until this panel is the half of my hips measurement when it's divided by 2. So it's a long panel, so if you're using half double crochet stitch, you are going to work this up super quick. Or if you're using a slip stitch like me, just know that you are it's going to take you a little bit longer than someone who's using a single crochet or half double crochet or double crochet stitch. So you're just going to repeat this, and I'll see you guys when I have that complete. So at this point, you should have 2 panels that look like this. The half of this panel has to be the half of your hips measurement. So if you take the measurement with the width, you should have half of your hips measurement. So for example, if your hips is 42, you're going to divide that number by 2, and that is going to leave you 21, and you want to make sure that this is 21 inches and the other panel is also 21 inches. Obviously this is the length, so we don't have to cross check that. So I have my second panel also complete. So what I'm going to do now is just fold this both ends. Again, you guys can see that the edge of my panels are straight because I did chain 1 and I made sure not to skip any stitch. So you're going to fold both panels into 2, just like this. So you want to make sure both of them are facing each other. What we're going to do is we are going to attach this first half of the panel. So grab your measurement tape and you are going to take the measurement from upwards 8 inches. This is actually just the division between your legs. So if you want this to be high-waisted, you are going to obviously make it longer. If you want it to be low waist, you're going to make it shorter. So I'm going to grab a stitch marker and mark this 8 inches. So you're going to mark whatever length you're going for. You're going to mark 8 inches right there. By marking, you're marking both sides of the panel, by the way, both sides of each panel. So you're marking them together, and you're just going to mark that with a stitch marker. Just like that, you have that done, and you're going to do the same thing on these 2 other ends of the panel. So what you can do is just turn these 2 and align them together, because then it's going to be easy for you to get the same measurement. But you can obviously use a measurement tape as well. Like that, you have the 2 ends marked. So you can now open each of the panel, and they should look like this. So you're going to open each, making sure that one panel is at one side and one panel is at one side again, like I said. So what we're going to do now is we are going to attach a yarn. I think we're going to attach the yarn on the side that we're going to attach the yarn. We are going to attach the yarn from the lower part. So I have this. I'm just going to end off this right there, and I'm going to grab my yarn and I'm going to attach that right into this very last stitch, and I attach the same thing on the other panel. I'm just going to secure that with a knot. Just like that, and from here you're going to single crochet until you get to this stitch marker. So you're single crocheting all the way to the stitch marker. You can also use a slip stitch for this or a needle. So I'm just going to carefully go into each stitch. So I'm going to chain one, go into this very first slip stitch and into this very first available space, and I'm just going to single crochet those two. You want to make sure that you're aligning the stitches together, just to make sure you still have the same straight panel and not to have any uneven panel at the end of this part. So you're going to carefully just single crochet in there up until you get to the very top. Right here I am coming to the stitch marker. You guys can see that I still have my 2 stitch markers marked. You also want to make sure that the 2 ends of the stitch markers are actually at the exact same space, because then it's going to make sure that both sides of the pants are actually even. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move to this other side. Let me just open this so you guys can see exactly what we're doing. So this is the upper part of your pants, while this is the lower part of your pants, right? So I just closed one leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way up onto the opposite end of the leg. But because I don't want to cut off my yarn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I go into this last stitch on this side with a slip stitch, and that is going to make it secure. And I like to go back into that same space just to make sure I have a very secure stitch with a single crochet. From there on, I am going to make my way up until the opposite side, and I'm going to go right into this very first stitch where the stitch marker is. The stitch marker is, I am going to insert a single crochet. So you want to make sure you go into this very first panel, but you're going into the next because we're attaching these two together. So you're going to go into the next with a single crochet, and I'm going back into that same space with a slip stitch just to make sure it's secure. And again, you guys can see that I just literally just moved from this side to this side. So now I'm just going to single crochet this side all the way to the very end. Super simple, guys. So I'm just carefully going to go into each stitch and single crochet the two, just the same exact thing that I did on the opposite side of the panel. And I'll see you guys at the very end. And of course, you want to repeat that until the very end of the panel, and you are going to go ahead and cut off the yarn right there. And now you can just take off the stitch markers because we already have this edge single crochet, so we know exactly what we're doing. So I'm just going to take off the stitch markers. And now we are going to go ahead and single crochet these two sides of the panel. So you're going to flip this, and you're just going to reattach your yarn right there. So I'm going to go into this space, the last space on this, and the last space on the opposite side, and I'm going to reattach my yarn right there. And I'm going to secure that with a few knots, of course, and I'm just going to single crochet the two ends of the panel. So I'm going to go back into that same space where I attached my yarn, and I work my way through. So you want to pull through. It's going to be a bit tight because I really attached my yarn into that last space. So we're going to go into this very first space on the side, on the first space on the opposite side, and we're going to single crochet those two together. Again, move your way up as you go. It's just one single crochet, making sure you're grabbing a stitch from one end and a stitch on the opposite end, just single crochet and knit it together, and you're going to repeat this until you get to the very top. Hey guys, so this is what your pants should look like. So I have one side sealed, so when you turn this, you have this opened. So I still have this open, so I'm going to do the same exact step. You want to make sure that there is no gap around the center, like this side is sealed, this side is sealed, and then I'll see you guys when it's complete. Just the same thing that I did on the opposite side. That is exactly what I'm about to do to the other side. So I'll see you guys when it's done. So the pants, I single crocheted everything together. Again, you want to make sure that your seam on this side aligns with the seam on this side, and also on the back. So now you are going to turn this over, and we are going to now adjust the waist. You guys can see that the waist is huge. This is not my waist measurement. I wanted to do something different, but I think I'm going to just stick to the original plan. So we are going to use an elastic band for this method. You guys know the same method that I used to attach elastic band to every item that I make. So now grab your elastic band and we are going to go to the next step. My band, I am just going to take the measurement, my waist measurement, in the unstretched form. So whatever measurement your waist is, you are going to just go ahead and take that measurement for the band. And you're going to cut that off. And you're going to go ahead and make a very loose knot for the band. The two ends, you're going to make a loose knot, so if you have to adjust this later on, you can easily do so. So right there, super loose, but you also want to make sure that the band is straight while you're doing that. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go underneath the band and through the back of the panel, and I'm just going to grab my yarn and pass that through the panel and underneath the band, so I can actually have the band attached to the pants or the shorts before I start single crocheting. And obviously you can go back and just make some extra knots just to make sure you're securing that before you start single crocheting around the band. So from here on, I am going to go ahead and single crochet around the band. So I'm just going to turn this over, and what I'm going to do is, obviously because the band is smaller than the pants, you're going to be stretching the band as you go, and obviously this is an elastic band, which means it's super stretchy. So I'm going to go into the very first loop on the pants, on the shorts, and I'm going to go underneath the elastic band, and I'm going to grab the yarn and pull through. And I like to just chain one just so I can have that full foundation chain. From here on, you're going to just go into this next space, making sure that the crochet hook is going underneath the band. Grab the yarn, you're going to yarn over and pull through. Again, into your next available space, go into that, make sure the crochet hook goes underneath the band, grab the yarn, pull through. When you have two loops, you're going to yarn over and pull through all two loops. And this is what you're carefully going to do, making sure you're not skipping any space, and you're going to single crochet all around until you have the entire pant around the band. Carefully just single crochet around, and I'll see you guys when it's complete. So right here I'm coming to the edge of the band. Now I can decide if I want to readjust the band or not. I already did take off the knot. We're also going to make sure we make a secure knot at this point, because the first one we made was not secure enough. So you can just take off your knot and secure that again with a few more extra knots, but this time you're going to make sure they are super tight. So you want to tighten that super tight, and also the knot is going to get super small when you tighten it, which is going to make it super easy for you to just finish off very well. So right there I have my knot, and I still have my yarn on this side of the panel because I did not take that out. So let me turn this over. So right here I am just going to go ahead and find my very first stitch that I made on this very first space of the band. So I like to just go back into that space and I'm going to find the very first one. And if I have to single crochet my way to get to that very first stitch, then you can also do that, because there are actually no rules to this. You just want to make sure that you secure your very last stitch very well. So right there, and if I find my last stitch, I am just going to go my very first stitch, sorry, I'm going to go into the very first and I will slip stitch that, and I'll chain one and cut this off just like that. You have your band secure and you have your stitches secure, so you should have something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and sew in the band just the same way I would sew in the yarn, the excess yarn. So I like to go through a few stitches around the band, stitches, grab the edge of the band, and I'm going to sew that in. Of course I'm going to go ahead and do that for a few more stitches. So I'm going to go into these few stitches. So obviously it's tight, so be careful and just carefully, patiently go through the stitches before you grab the band. And then I'm just going to grab the band and pull through. Carefully pull through. And you can also obviously do this for one more set before you cut off your band. Right there. And I like to just make sure it's not too tight. And now you can just easily cut off your band. And you can seamless. So I will be combining this for the upper part of the pants, for the shorts. I don't know why I keep saying pants. Whatever. We are going to combine these two, but you can obviously use one yarn for this. You don't have to. The only reason why I'm combining this is because I'm making a set. So it just makes sense that I do combine this color because the top already has white with it. So yarn on the back of the panel. So that is where this knot is. So I know this is the back of the panel. So I'm going to reattach my yarn into that very first stitch on the left. And I'm going to obviously go back and make a secure knot. From here on, we are going to start this first row by chaining 3. So you're going to go into the very first stitch and you're going to grab the yarn and pull through. From there on, you are going to chain 3. After chaining 3, you're going to skip 2 stitches, single crochet stitches, because you remember when we attached the band we used single crochet. So we have 1, 2 stitch. You're going to go into the third. It's actually difficult for you to identify these stitches, so I don't want you to struggle with that. All you have to do is you can just move the band a little and then you can see your stitches. So you're going to skip 2 stitches. For me it's going to be 1, 2, and into the third I am going to insert a single crochet. After my single crochet, I am going to chain 2 and insert another single crochet into that same stitch. So we have chain 3, which is a double crochet stitch on its own, skip 2 into the third with a single crochet, chain 2, a single crochet. From here on, you're going to skip 2 stitches. Again, to do that, you can just open up your stitches just so you can see well, and into the third you're going to insert a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet all into that same space. From there on, you're going to open your stitch again, skip 2 stitches, and into the third, which is this stitch, I am going to insert a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet stitch. Again, skip 2 stitches, and into the next stitch, the third, you're going to insert a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet. And this is what you're going to repeat all around. Obviously this is time consuming because of the single crochet stitches we did, but you're going to repeat this all around until you get to the very end of the row, and I'll see you guys at the very end. Here I am coming to the very edge of the panel, so I have my chain 2 right here at the very beginning. So what you're going to do is, I have 2 stitches, so you're going to repeat this pattern until you have less than 3 stitches. So right there I have 2 stitches. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into this chain 2. Into the top chain I am going to slip stitch to end of the first row, and that is how you complete row 1. For the next row, which is row 2, you're going to chain 3 and turn. And for this next row, we are going to be working double crochets into the chain 2 space that we did for the entire panel. So right into this very first chain 2 space, I am going to insert 3 double crochets all into that same space. Right there, and I am going to skip this space, and into this next chain 2 space I am going to insert 3 double crochets. So it's difficult for you to actually see. What I do is I just like to turn this, then I can look at the very top and see if there's a chain 2 going on. So I'm going to insert 3 double crochets into every chain 2 space until I get to the very beginning of the row. Right there, and then into this next I am going to insert chain 2 into that chain. I'm going to insert 3 double crochets, into the chain 2 space. And I'm going to go into this next chain 2 space with 3 double crochets. You're going to just work your 3 double crochets until you get to that very last chain 2 space, and you're going to find your very top chain, which is the chain 3 we did at the very beginning. You're going to go into the top chain with a slip stitch, and that is how you are going to end off the row. And from there I just chain 1, and I'm going to cut off the yarn. I'm only doing 2 rows, but if you want to do more rows, you're going to just repeat row 1 and row 2 again until you have your desired length. But I think 2 rows is fine because the yarn is already bulky, and you're just going to sew in the loose end and cut off the yarn. And this is the final look. I will see you guys next week for a new video. Take care and have a blessed week.